Mindfulness versus mindset. Do you know the difference? This video is going to walk you through the subtle but very important differences and distinctions between mindset and mindfulness, and why it's so important for us to know the difference in order for us to manifest and create what we want. There's a lot of talk going on about mindset and shifting your mindset and being, mindful living and all of that. And it's all super important, but do we really know and understand the differences? That's what this video is about today. Now, if you're new to the channel, I'm Kim Marie, and this channel is all about empowering women to live aligned with their most authentic selves, with a sense of meaning and purpose, and a really, truly holistic approach to life. So you want to be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the videos, and check out other videos in the various playlists that I have. Okay, mindfulness. I want to start there. Now, we hear a lot about the concept of mindful living, being mindful. Mindfulness really is, in many ways, a way of being, okay? And we want to show up mindfully in all that we do. One of the first distinctions about mindfulness is that it's awareness, okay? We want to be aware. We don't want to go into things blindly and just show up without considering and questioning and being curious and maybe, challenging the status quo a little bit, considering other alternatives. When we are aware, we notice the little nuances. We notice the ways in which things don't feel quite right and aren't really aligned, maybe with our own values, with our own sense of meaning or purpose. Maybe there's an energy that we want to be mindful of or aware of. We've all walked into a room where we feel like the energy is so thick you could cut it with a knife, right? You know that feeling. Or you feel the sorrow or the grief walking into one situation, or the joy and elation walking into another situation. We feel those things. In order to notice the subtleties, though, mindfulness is really helpful, where we're literally paying more attention, asking questions, being more aware, and being willing to notice those things. Another aspect of mindfulness has to do with a holistic approach to life, okay? Mindfulness is aware. One of the things about the sacred feminine, which I really have a deep passion for, is that the feminine has a diffuse awareness, okay? Whereas the masculine has a very focused awareness. Now, a diffuse awareness is very holistic, and we are seeing a lot of these feminine qualities rising. And we need to have focus, we need to have structure, these very masculine qualities. And I think part of the reason we're hearing so much about mindfulness and the importance of it is that with mindfulness, we're taking this holistic approach that requires a certain amount of coherence within our being, okay? And what do I mean by coherence? Coherence has to do with bringing all aspects of our being, the holistic nature of our being, into balance or harmony, you could say, okay? And so we have our thoughts, okay? We want to be mindful of our thoughts. We have our emotions. We want to be mindful of our emotions. So, okay, let's distinguish there for a little bit, because, okay, mindful of our thoughts. We think the thoughts come from the mind, right? Yes, and yet we can have that monkey mind, right? That is kind of, you get a song stuck in your head and you're repeating it over and over, or somebody says something to you that triggers you and you're constantly repeating it, right? If you're not being mindful, then you're not thinking from that place of higher thought. You're in that monkey mind. You're kind of repeating and going through things again and again, like banging your head against a brick wall, right? And the stepping back into mindfulness is like stepping behind the whole process into this higher thinking that we have the capacity for as human beings, all right? So that higher thinker, or that observer, as I like to call her, can step back and look at, what are our thoughts? What are the emotions going on? What are the behaviors, the actions, the habits, the patterns that we're acting out and expressing, right? And noticing what's going on in our bodies, feeling into that. So we have the thoughts, the emotions, the behaviors or will forces that we want to bring into coherence. We want them to be in harmony with one another, because our thinking is going to then start us feeling different things, because we're going to have a story about something, we're going to feel something, and then ultimately that's going to create or not create various actions in our lives. And so we need to keep stepping back to this sense of mindfulness. Mindfulness has a lot to do with this observer that's able to look with diffuse awareness at the holistic picture, the fullness of our being and what we're seeing on the outside too. We want to look at that within. We want to be mindful of ourselves, but we also want to be mindful of our environment, right? Who are the people we're spending time with? Are we noticing their energy? Are we listening to what's being said? Are we going into stories about things or looking at what's actually happening, right? We want to consider the physical space that we're in, the activity that we're doing, the energetic space that we're in. All of these things matter when we're trying to look holistically and be mindful of our experiences and what's going on. We might start really stepping back, and rather than say, let's say we visit, family, okay? Families are always very triggering for things. It's just kind of part of what happens, right? And maybe somebody in our family says something to us. We can get triggered, and we can go into all those stories that can trigger those feelings that can cause us to want to curl up inside and do nothing, right? Or we can also look at it as, all right, I'm just going to notice. I'm just going to notice that that's what's going on. That's what's happening. Okay, this is what often happens. I'm going to kind of prepare for that, maybe know that. I'm going to be aware of where I am and who I'm with, and not get triggered by it or caught off guard, because I can kind of prepare. Now, there are plenty of situations and environments and circumstances and people that show up in our lives that we're not prepared for. And that's okay too. We can just take a breath, ground ourselves, center ourselves, and move into that space of the observer, this mindful observer that's able to look on things in a more objective way. So we have our thoughts, we have our emotions, we have our behaviors, and we want to kind of convert that mindfulness into mindful living, all right? Where we're literally being aware of everything that is unfolding in our lives. We're aware of every piece of food that we put into our lives, right? We're mindful of our eating. We're mindful of our rest habits. We're mindful of the way that we speak and the way that we think, especially our self-talk, right? We're mindful of the ways in which we are treating others, or the things that trigger us and how others are treating us, right? So mindfulness has so much to do with a very diffuse awareness that is holistic, that's taking into consideration the whole picture. Okay, so now with mindset, we want to shift gears a little bit. Mindset is actually, you can even think of it in terms of the way the word is said, right? Mindfulness is sort of a way of being. It's a noticing, it's the way we're showing up. Mindset is the way that our mind, our thoughts are set. We literally have these neural pathways that it's kind of like, if I think of 2 points within the brain, and there's all these fibers connecting these 2 points. Those are neural pathways, and they're created over time based on repetitive patterns, habits, thoughts, emotions, things that trigger us and come up and that are regularly present, okay? They become set when many, many more start forming between those 2 points, like trigger and response. This idea that, okay, an event happens, we have a response, and this is the constant response that we're used to having. And when that happens repeatedly, we build these neural pathways, and that becomes our mindset. Now, it's way more complicated than that. I'm not here to be the scientist or to go into all of the science about it, but I want to just simply distinguish between this idea of the behavior, the action, the expression of mindfulness versus the aspect of mindset. Now, in my previous video about mindset, which I encourage you to take a look at, I shared with you 6 ways of moving into mindset. And I was talking about these 6 ways, the fact that in my life, I had learned a lot of different things over the years about mindset, but I often learned them one at a time. You know, somebody would say, oh, you have to visualize. Somebody else would say, you have to set an intention. And another person would say, it's all about how you feel. And another would say, you have to believe it, right? And I went through these 6 different ideas about mindset. And I'll list them here for you. It's visualizing, affirming with gratitude, setting intentions, feeling, believing, and committing. So this idea of committing with our will, we're going to commit to this process. Now, when we have those neural pathways, this idea of visualizing differently, believing differently, setting different intentions, right? Choosing to behave differently and commit to new patterns, new actions, new behaviors, that is going to start breaking apart those neural pathways. And now the pathway that went from here, from this event to this event, maybe it's now broken. And instead, these pathways are going to start going over here to this event, right? Maybe when I got triggered by stress, my neural pathway was to respond by heading for the refrigerator to eat something, right? That was my mindset, okay? Or to immediately tell myself, you're not good enough, you're not valuable, you're not worthy, okay? And then if I decide that I want to create something new that says a stress trigger is going to be about receiving a deep breath, opening myself up, grounding myself to the earth, opening myself to spirit, to source, or maybe, you know, oh, it's time for a pause. Go hydrate yourself, have a drink of water, and maybe move your body a little bit. Whatever that new response is gonna be, I'm gonna form new neural pathways. That's gonna change the mindset. Now, in that video I shared with you, there's something I said at the very beginning. There was one more kind of a bonus thing about mindset that I threw in there. And I said it was embodiment, okay? This is the biggest thing that we need to understand, is the distinction between mindfulness versus mindset. Mindset is a set way of being, if you will, okay? Mindfulness is the way that we show up, how we show up, the kinds of activities, you know, the kinds of noticing. In order for us to change the mindset, it has to be embodied, which means those neural pathways have to be formed, and it requires practice. It requires a lot of practice and perseverance and effort. And I need to confess, you know, I've been thinking about this a lot myself, because I have practiced mindset in all these different ways, and I practice mindfulness. And I notice there are certain areas in my life where my own mindset is not set yet to where I want it to be. So I'll probably do a video in the future about all the ways in which we can practice shifting our mindset. But for now, I invite you to share in the comments, what do you notice about this distinction between mindfulness and mindset? And can you see how maybe we're living a mindful life? You know, maybe we're being very aware of what's going on, but we're not doing much to shift our mindset. Maybe we're not visualizing something new. We're not setting new intentions. We're not actively shifting. And we need mindfulness in order to do that. We need to be mindful of, okay, out of all those things that could shift my mindset, which things do I need to practice the most? That's an awareness. That's a mindfulness. But we can't really change it. We can't show up more automatically in a new way if we're not also practicing and actually reconfiguring those neural pathways to change our mindset and way of being. And we have mindset and mindfulness in different domains of our life, right? We might get swept off our feet in a relationship and we're completely not mindful about it at all, right? As the saying goes, love is blind, right? And we have no sense of mindfulness or awareness. We're just, you know, getting swept off our feet and feeling so happy to be in a new relationship that we're not paying attention to maybe some of those red flags. That's where mindfulness can really come in. Now, maybe we're not even open to a relationship, or we just have a thought that I'm not worthy of a relationship, or I don't deserve a relationship, or all men are bad, or all women are bad, or, you know, I'm just gonna get used, or whatever. These are mindsets. Do you see what I mean? There's a difference in there. It's an attitude. It's an assumption, it's a belief, and we need to be willing to shift that with our mindfulness, stepping back into the observer we are and noticing those things, noticing the patterns, the triggers, the beliefs, the kinds of things that are going on, and then make that decision, that willful decision to shift it. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that distinction is helpful. Share in the comments where you've noticed the distinctions and if this makes a lot of sense to you. I really look forward to sharing more about this topic, and I know that we all have got to start being both more mindful and shifting our mindset in order to shift toward the life that we long for. We are all deserving. We are all enough. You are beautiful. You are worthy. You are enough, and you deserve to have the life that you want. So let's work on our mindfulness and our mindset and understand how they can actually work together.